Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Let's get off the carousel of crazy, not the carousel of crazy, but the carousel of procrastination. Did anybody ever feel, did your hair just go up on the back of your neck when I talked about the word procrastination? Anyone? If you're guilty and you know it, raise your pinkies and then clap your hands. Yes, this is one of our carousel of crazies, is this idea of procrastination, and is this thing of how we end up taking our dreams and dashing them against the procrastination rocks. Kimberly says she's turned it into an art form. Look at everybody. Everybody's, I know you because I know me. This is us, right? This is us. So, but if we're going to make a dent in the universe, remember what Steve Jobs said. This is how we started the week. Making a dent in the universe, because it is up to us to make that dent in the universe. And if we are here, then we are candidates for this. We are candidates. Sarah said, later, I'll raise them later. Procrastination much? So anyway, he offered that. That's the reason that we're here. And I agree with him. But we also need to come to terms with today. Okay? Because yes, we have to come to terms with today. We also have to come to terms with our past. And we also have to understand that when we're determined that we want something other than we have and we still procrastinate, we are destroying our dreams right away. It's absolute complete destruction. It's the crucible of destruction. Here's the crucible, put in the dreams, smash them. We do it. We know that we're doing it when we do it, and yet still we do it. Do you want to know why? I mean, everybody always wants to tell you how to overcome it. Eat it one bite at a time. It's an elephant. It's this, it's that. It's all the kind of blah, right? There's my girl, Angie. Elaine says that talks straight to me. Wait till you hear what I have to say, because I am telling you right now that this is the needle mover, and this is the thing that's just going to make you explode. You're going to cry, Flynn. I promise you. So we know that procrastination is a thing. We know it makes us feel rotten. We know that it not only delays what we ultimately want to accomplish, it goes way deeper than that. And here's the thing that I want you to know right now, and I want you to write this down, please. Procrastination isn't because you're lazy. You are not lazy. If you procrastinate, it's not because you're lazy. What the psychologists have found out is that procrastination is self-harm. Now, hear me out. Psychologist Piers Steele, the author of, perfect book, listen to this, How to Stop Putting Things Off and Start Getting Things Done, did several studies and found that procrastination, what we know about procrastination is that it's completely irrational. It's irrational because we know what's going to end up with what our end result is going to be. We're going to feel bad about ourselves. We're going to start beating ourselves up, the whole 9 yards. But here's the deal. Apparently, procrastination is also a coping mechanism. We procrastinate to cope with the negativity that is connected with what we're feeling about having to do the thing that we're supposed to be doing. So let's say you have like something due at work, or you have something that you've been trying to do, or a closet you wanted to clean out, or something, or whatever. Yeah, you can say, oh, it overwhelms me. Oh, it's too big, or oh, it's this, or it's that. But it could be connected to boredom, anxiety about the project, a negative mood even, challenging emotions that you just quite don't know what to do with, it can go even deeper and be connected way in the back of you to some emotions that maybe you had, like your sixth grade teacher came up to you and, popped you in the chest and said something mean to you. I had that. Fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Ackerman. Who did it? Somebody maybe caused you harm in the back. And so you procrastinate and push off because at a tender moment, somebody did something, maybe on repeat. Maybe that's what happened. So here's another thing. So that blew me away, by the way. I never associated procrastination with any kind of way I felt. I just knew how I felt after I procrastinated, right? But it's because what our amygdala does is says, oh no, here comes risk, here comes pain, anxiety, depression, whatever. And maybe something like I said, way attached into the back emotional underpinnings of your psyche from when you were in fourth grade. I don't know. But all of that is what comes up, is attached to it, and your amygdala is trying to protect you so you don't experience that again. Does that not blow you away? Tom Seikel, another psychologist, agrees and said, procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. I'm telling you, my head exploded over that one. So in other words, when we procrastinate, we're dealing with some kind of negativity, and that's more urgent according to our brain. That's more urgent. That negativity that arises when we think we need to be doing something or supposed to be doing something, we procrastinate instead. That is more urgent. I never connected those two. Never. So there's an entire body, and then you want to hear what even blew me away more? There's an entire body of research called procrastinatory cognitions. In other words, the ruminating thoughts that we have and the things that we say about ourselves and the emotions that they're all connected to, it's being studied because it's not an anomaly. It's everywhere. It's commonplace. Tell me this isn't blowing you away. Yeah, there you go. I see the comments. I mean, seriously, bam. And here's the thing. Here's where it gets even more tenuous, right? It's a vicious cycle because here's what happens, especially because procrastination makes us feel better for just a minute. And that just a minute thing is enough for our amygdala to be rewarded. Gosh. So anyway, now that I've blown you away, because I'm seriously, I'm all morning long, I'm going, I can't believe this. It's just so crazy. But over time, the procrastination habit then kicks in, because if we do it enough times, this habit does kick in. That's what addictive habits are about. That's why you light one cigarette after the other, drink one glass after the other of wine when you should be done. That's why you stop exercising and start hanging your clothes on your bike, instead of using it. But here's the thing. Over time, the procrastination habit creates chronic stress, low-level dissatisfaction of life, chronic clinical depression, and heart disease. This is what happens to us when we have emotions in our bodies. They need some place to go. They have to be dealt with. This container, this beautiful human being container of ours, is not meant for carrying around emotions that stagnate and sit and fester. It's meant for us to express them and get them out. Now, if you're raised in a home where you didn't do much of that, I know exactly what it is. But this is what it leads to. And it leads to these things, and we don't quite understand that. We just think we're lazy. We just think we need to learn a new hack. We need to do this instead of that. All of that's true. But when we understand the depth and what it's all tied to, then we can be a little bit more gentle with ourselves. And believe me, I've got some, based on these studies that these psychologists have done, I've got some really illuminating ideas for you to start using on yourself when you fall into a procrastination thing, right? Okay, so Dr. Judson Brewer, who is the director of Brown University Mindfulness Center. Brown University has a mindfulness center. That blew me away. He says we need to give our brains a bigger, better offer. He's calling it the BBO. Okay. So what is a bigger, better offer? It's a better reward than procrastination is what it is. Something that's internal. Now hear me on this. This is where it gets important. Something that's internal, not like if I follow through and work out 5 days this week and whatever, I'll go get a mani-pedi. No, we know that one, right? Duh. That one's forever. What it is something that's internal, something that you say yourself, something to calm and love yourself up. Don't we all need to be calmed and a little more loved up these days, right? Sarah says her house needs a mindfulness center. You have one, honey. It's you. So there it is. So here's what you can do. And this is what Dr. Brewer is saying. Number one is, and will you hear me on this one? Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. We struggle sometimes with forgiving others because of the atrocities committed or the things that had happened or whatever. We ruminate on them. And I get that. But the person that we least forgive is ourselves. And boy, do we need this. Here's the thing. Again, back to Dr. Brewer. He did 2010, he did a study with students. And they were procrastinators, admitted procrastinators. And they procrastinate. So when he got some procrastinators who had done their first exam of the year, got them all together, and he said, I have a technique to help you overcome your procrastination. You ready? Let's do this together. And he got them together, and he had them forgive themselves. I forgive myself for procrastinating over this test. I forgive myself for, allowing other things to be in there, and it's okay. I can move on from this. It doesn't mean I'm a patently bad person. That doesn't mean anything. Just means I put off studying for this test. When exam number 2 came along, most of them ended up not procrastinating for their second exam. And I look at that and and it almost brings me to tears because I think of how many times I have punched myself down, how many negative things I've said about myself, how horribly I treated myself and the words that I've said, when maybe what needed to happen was a little gentleness, a little kindness, meted out in heaping tablespoons over my own head, not someone else. Not, a technique or a hack or this or that, just plain old forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Move on. It's not the end of the world. Don't attach all these things to it, and let's just allow for the process. I thought that was incredible. So the conclusion, obviously, of this study is that forgiveness facilitates the ability to move past the act of procrastination. What a concept. So he said that, it's a maladaptive behavior because there's no reward really attached to it except such a minuscule, eensy beensy, tiny, whoop, there it is, kind of a reward. And then it just flies away and we're left with the wreckage of what it is. So it helps us to move past the maladaptive behavior without the burden of the past acts of procrastination. I don't know about you, but that to me was just a very big breath of fresh air. All right. So in other words, there's no more guilt. How about that? No more guilt. So can you imagine doing that for yourself? Can you imagine the relief that you feel not having to go and read another book or figure it all out or looking for another hack? It's just that forgiveness for yourself. Another tactic that he had in there was self-compassion. So the same study found that procrastinators have low self-compassion. They're constantly beating themselves up. So giving oneself compassion acts as a buffer toward the usual self-flagellation that you do when you procrastinate. Can you Can you see all of this? There are a few more things we can do so you and I can both stop procrastinating over putting a dent in the universe, right? That's why we're here. So number one is this: pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to how you feel. Your emotions shift when you procrastinate. Did you notice that? Knowing so will help bring in awareness, and awareness can help you ask appropriate, curious questions. Well, why am I doing this? How am I feeling? What's up? Getting in touch with yourself instead of ignoring it so that you can move past. That's a big act. And number two is considering what's next. And you can break it into smaller chunks. How many times have you heard that one? But instead of just breaking it into smaller chunks, what if you asked, well, what's next? What needs to, if I were to do this instead of procrastinating, what would I need to do? And so again, back to the research, what they did was ask the participants in this research, and they said, well, what would you need to do in order to get this started? Well, the guy said, well, I need to start a spreadsheet. Okay, can you start the spreadsheet? Or I need to start this paper, or I need to read this book, or whatever. And they had them start the task, and what they found was that it was calming. Just starting the task, just starting. And then, because we know this, you guys know, we've talked about this before. What does action do? Action gives us motivation. It doesn't go the other way around. Action, then motivation. What does a lot of motivation do? It begins the process of more action, which leads to momentum. And that's just pure, unadulterated magic. So that's how we get past this procrastination hoo-ha and start really understanding that procrastination is a signal and a symptom that all is not well with your soul, and that all is not well with how you are loving yourself. So if we can start to get into this, and we can start to love ourselves, regardless of all the stuff that's going on, regardless of that eensy-beensy, tiny-wincy dopamine hit that we may get from having just that small little bit of procrastination, we're going to find ourselves feeling a whole lot better, giving ourselves a whole lot more grace. And I'm going to bet that procrastination starts to lose its grip on us. What do you think of that idea? I think it's something worth thinking about. That's what I think. Thank you so much for joining me today. I so appreciate the fact that you show up. That's not procrastinating, by the way. And pinkies up for those of you who have decided to make a dent in the universe. Juanita, I'm so glad that helped you today. And I hope so much that everybody else who's listening, that it helps you as well. It blew me away, I have to say. Pinkies up. Thanks for joining me today. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.